Hi, William Tramp, also known as This Effin' GM here. There's a lot to love about playing Zweihänder Reforged. Of course, there are the normal aspects of playing any tabletop role-playing game that you love. We have fun with our friends, we get to make new stories, and we get to experience the thrill of success and the agony of defeat. When we play these games, we choose to use certain game systems for certain reasons. Each system's rule set has a unique combination of mechanics and gameplay that keep us coming back to it as our preferred way to drive our stories. And one game I keep coming back to is Zweihänder. Now before we get started, I should give a disclaimer. World of Game Design, who owns Zweihänder after purchasing the rights to the game from Daniel Fox in 2023, has paid me to make this video. This is great for me because there's no way I wasn't going to talk at length about a project that I contributed to. That's right, I am now a professional writer. With that aside, today I want to talk about the top 5 reasons I come back to Zweihänder as my gritty horror game system of choice. First up is number 5, exploding dice. I love exploding dice. Like other tabletop role-playing games, Zweihänder expresses weapon and spell damage through the use of dice. For weapons, this is most often a d6, and for spells, a d10, and modified afterwards by some sort of ability score. What makes Zweihänder shine is the exploding dice mechanic. Okay, what does that mean? Well, if a player rolls the highest possible number on a damage dice, the player not only gets to keep that number, but they also get to roll again and add the new number to the total. So if I roll a d6 for damage and I roll a 6, it explodes! And I roll again, getting a 4, and then I add the 6 and the 4 together to get a 10, and then I get to add any modifiers I want for my damage. That is awesome! Now, I know what you might be thinking. What if I roll the maximum number a second time? Well, then I get to do it again, adding all of the dice to the total until I stop rolling the maximum number. Nothing is more dramatic and show-stopping to me than hitting that 6 on a d6 exploding damage dice, or d10 for spellcasters. Now, I once ran Zweihänder at Gen Con in 2022, and in the final boss battle, we had a survivor explode his damage like 3 to 4 times. And I kid you not when I say that the whole table was up and cheering as he cut a horse demon in half. That is still one of my favorite moments in tabletop role-playing. Alright, next I want to talk about my number 4 favorite, leveling up. In a lot of TTRPGs, whenever you obtain a certain amount of experience points, you'll level up. Usually this translates to 1 new level every 5 to 10 sessions of play. Now, this means that at some point during your adventuring career, your character will be handed an entire pile of abilities and set loose out into the world. Sure hope you know how to use all those new abilities. In Zweihänder, leveling up happens one piece at a time. The profession that you choose grants you a number of abilities that you will gain over time. And at the end of each session, you get to choose one of these to add to your survivor. Now, some of these are just static bonuses to your ability scores. Some are improvements to your current skills, and some are all new capabilities your survivor gets to face the world. Being able to level up incrementally after every session reinforces reward behavior. It feels good to fill in one of those little bubbles, and that makes the game session feel good. This level up method allows for an easier learning curve over time for the players, and it helps game masters to establish pacing. Frankly, my favorite part about this method is that it keeps people from missing one big boss battle, which then forces me, a game master, to feel like I either need to give the missing player experience points that they didn't earn, or have the player lag too far behind. And that's a feeling I do not mind doing away with. Okay, let's talk about my number 3 favorite part of Zweihänder, supply. I've talked about supply before, but I absolutely love this mechanic. So the idea is that rather than keeping track of individual consumables like arrows, laudanum, torches, or black powder charges, we use a supply rating, which can be more than one. These supply ratings are represented by a d6. Whenever you go to use one of those items, well, first, you get to use it if you have at least 1 rating in the supply. But then, rather than marking off 1 use, you roll a d6 to see if you retain your current level of supply. If the supply rating die shows a phase 6, you reduce that rating by 1, and this represents the usage. So sometimes, the amount you use isn't considered to be enough to really affect your stores. But sometimes, it's real tense. Such as when you're in the middle of a deep, dark catacomb, and you only have 1 rating of torch supply left, and you know that any torch you pull out and light may be your last. It's an abstract way to track consumables, and I love it because it's tense and it's exciting. It's a constant gamble when things start to get low. Alright, this brings us to my number 2 favorite thing about Zweihänder, and that is Peril. Like a second hit point track, Peril encompasses all that can happen to a hero that isn't directly deadly, but makes an impact on a character throughout the adventuring day. Peril can encompass fear, exhaustion, revulsion. Really, it's the tracker for that which doesn't kill you or make you stronger. As a near lifelong Dungeon Master Forever DM, I'm in love with this mechanic, as it can be used to reinforce the importance of themes and actions that are presented that sometimes I think we as tabletop role-playing game players get a little meh about. Like, you see a horrifically mangled body, roll some Peril. Climbing a sheer cliff with no rope and you slip a little bit, Peril. Faced with a terrible decision with no good way out, and you know this has the possibility of haunting you every waking moment for the rest of your life, Peril it up, baby! I would argue that Peril is the most important aspect of the Zweihänder Reforged gameplay loop. It doubles the amount of danger your character can find themselves in, and it grants concrete terms in which the Game Master can add impact to story beats. Finally, the last mechanic on my list of favorite things about Zweihänder is my number 1 favorite, the fortune points. Of all the ways the game promotes excitement through the act of gameplay, I would say fortune points are the number 1 player engager. All of the excitement of exploding dice and meaningful choices, all in the form of a neat little coin, at least for my games. Okay, so what are fortune points? Fortune points are a system that allows players and game masters to mechanize the whims of fortune and use it to their advantage. First, we begin with the ritual at the start of a session. Each person, player or game master, has a fortune point. At my table, we represent this with a coin. Then we determine among the players who gets to keep their point by having each one of them roll a d6. If the players roll a 1 through 5, they get to keep their fortune point and add it to the player pool. If they roll a 6, they hand their fortune point over to the game master. Alright, so you build your fortune pool, but how is fortune used? Okay, at any point a player likes, they can grab a coin out of the pool and use it to turn fortune their way. They can reroll a test, maximize a damage die, they can get an extra action even outside of their turn, or they can make a slight edit to the situation. Once a fortune point is used in one of these ways, the point goes over to the Game Master, because not only can players use them, but the Game Master can use them too in the exact same ways, representing how fortune turns against them. Of course, when a Game Master uses a fortune point, that point returns to the player pool. This creates a tug of war, reinforcing the illusion of players surviving the world the Game Master represents. Fortune points allow the Game Master to control beats in combat. Monsters can become more dangerous when it's needed, and the tension just rises as the Game Master pool continues to build. My favorite Game Master tactic with fortune points, a nice Game Master tactic, occurs when the players have no coins left. All hope is lost. Well, it sounds like it's time for a massive assault from the big bad evil guy, using coins for more actions and rerolls and max damage dice everywhere! First, I can say with experience that this is terrifying when it happens. Second, the unspoken part. Even though the big bad evil guy has just unleashed hell upon the players, the player pool is now basically back to full. Between you and me, when I have those moments as a game master where I feel like I've given the players a little too much to handle, fortune points are a great balancer. I simply have the enemy go Nova, and now the players are perfectly placed to turn the tide and deliver their finishing blow with a whole host of fortune points. I can say 100%, fortune points are a game changer for my table, and has absolutely made our games a lot more engaging. There's a lot to love about Zweihänder. I didn't even have time to go into how damage tracks are set up to be intuitive for gameplay conversation, or how much I love that player-facing difficulty ratings give players a feeling of control. I would have loved to mention how important conditions that we normally take for granted in other games, like disease, cannot just be wiped away with a low-level spell, or how spells have a chance for critical success and failures, making spellcasting a very exciting and dangerous proposition. If you want to know more, or if you want to experience the gameplay yourself, you should head to the Zweihänder Reforged Kickstarter and consider pledging. I made a video explaining the Kickstarter right up here, and I've also placed the link to the Kickstarter in the thing below. Otherwise, I want to thank you for letting me talk about my favorite aspects of Zweihänder, and I look forward to seeing you next time.